What if I told you that the secret to becoming completely untouchable, powerful, and truly peaceful lies in doing absolutely nothing for just 5 seconds?
Right, doing nothing.
Yeah, literally nothing. Today, we are going to explore the profound difference between living a really painful life and a peaceful one.
It sounds completely counterintuitive, doesn't it? I mean, our whole culture tells us to, fight back, to clap back, to never let anyone get the last word.
Oh, absolutely. The internet is built on clapping back.
Exactly. But those 5 seconds of complete intentional nothingness are actually the dividing line between being puppeteered by the chaotic world around you and taking absolute, unshakable control of your own mind.
And by the end of this deep dive, you are going to learn 7 critical lessons to take back your power, plus one special bonus lesson at the very end that brings all of this into perfect focus.
It really ties it all together.
It does. But before we get into the actual mechanics of how this all works, I need to say this. Welcome to Everyday English Flow. Daily English practice, natural speaking, and effortless listening flow. If you'd like to support our work, please like and subscribe. It helps us keep creating high-quality content and bring you even better lessons in the future.
So our mission today is highly specific. We are going to deconstruct exactly how to stop letting external forces, other people's moods, passive-aggressive emails, rude strangers control your internal state.
Right.
And this deep dive actually serves a dual purpose. First, we're going to build your psychological and emotional armor. But second, we are simultaneously going to build your powerful English fluency.
2 birds, 1 stone.
Exactly. Every psychological concept we break down today is designed to teach you absolute clarity in both your thinking and your language.
Which is why, throughout this conversation, we are going to organically unpack some incredibly useful B2 and C1 level English words, idioms, and phrasal verbs. But we aren't going to just, read you dictionary definitions.
No, that would be incredibly boring.
Right. We are going to look at the psychological mechanics behind these words, giving you the context to actually use them naturally in your daily life. It's really about upgrading your vocabulary at the exact same time you upgrade your mindset.
I love that. Upgrading both at once.
Yeah. Okay, so let's unpack this. We're starting right at the foundation with lesson 1, which is reacting means they control you.
Yeah. To understand this, we really have to look at the environment we operate in daily. We live in an attention economy, sure, but it's also a reaction economy.
A reaction economy. That's a great way to phrase it.
People constantly want a reaction from you, usually to regulate their own nervous systems. Think about it. A coworker might insult your projects simply because making you feel small makes them feel artificially superior.
Oh, totally. Or, a friend might just ignore your text messages purely to test their power over your confidence.
Exactly. And the default human setting in these moments is just immediate reaction. We get defensive, we raise our voices, we send a 3-paragraph text message back within seconds.
Just furious typing.
Right. And the moment you do that, the moment someone realizes they can push a specific button and instantly generate a predictable emotional explosion from you, you've forfeited all of your power.
Wow. You just hand it right over.
You do. You are no longer an independent operator. You're essentially a biological puppet. And the strings pulling your arms and legs are your own unmanaged, raw emotions. Reacting fast is incredibly common, but it is not a sign of strength. It is emotional slavery.
Okay, let's tie this to our first English learning focus. When you let someone pull those strings, what they're really trying to do is make you fall apart.
To fall apart.
Right. So fall apart is a phrasal verb, and it paints a very specific picture. Imagine a poorly built bridge carrying too much weight. Eventually, the structure just fails and collapses into the river.
Just gives way.
Exactly. So to fall apart emotionally means to lose your ability to cope, to break down, or to lose your structure. For example, you might say, he fell apart when he heard the bad news.
That structural analogy is so perfect. Your emotional baseline should be like a structurally sound building. When you react defensively, you're basically removing your own support beams.
Yeah, you're doing the work for them.
Exactly. And the reason people try to make you fall apart brings us to a really vital C1 level word, which is manipulate.
Oh, manipulate. Let's talk about the mechanics of that word.
Yeah.
Because I think people hear manipulate and they picture like a cartoon villain rubbing his hands together.
Right. Some evil genius in a lair.
Exactly. But to manipulate someone simply means to control or influence them cleverly and usually unfairly, often without them even realizing it's happening.
Precisely. If I can make you angry enough that you start shouting in a meeting, I've successfully manipulated you.
Right.
I have guided your actions. I've made you look unstable so that I can look calm and reasonable by comparison. An example sentence would be, he tried to manipulate his friend into paying for dinner. When you react with unthinking speed, you are basically handing the manipulator the remote control to your brain.
That makes me think of a story I read recently about a young guy working in a really high-pressure corporate finance office. Let's call him David.
Okay, David.
So David was the quintessential hard worker, first one in, last one out, meticulously organized. But his manager was incredibly insecure and had a habit of taking credit for the team's work.
Oh, we all know a manager like that.
Don't we just? Well, one day, during a major cross-departmental review meeting, the manager casually threw David under the bus. He blamed David for a massive data error that was actually the manager's own fault.
Ouch.
Yeah, and he did it completely deadpan, right in front of the department heads.
That is a catastrophic threat to David's professional survival right there.
Yeah.
The manager is actively touching a very primal nerve, the fear of being ostracized by the tribe.
Exactly. So what happened? David's brain perceived a lethal threat, and he just went nuclear. He slammed his hand on the conference table.
Oh, no.
Yeah. He stood up, face totally red, and started shouting, aggressively pointing his finger at the manager, detailing exactly why the manager was lying. The entire boardroom just froze.
Let me guess. The manager didn't yell back.
Not at all.
Right.
The manager just leaned back in his chair, put his hands up in this, like, placating gesture, and very quietly said, David, let's try to keep this professional. We can discuss your stress levels offline.
Devastating. That is just devastating. The manager perfectly executed the manipulation.
Completely. And the tragedy is the long-term aftermath. The data error was eventually fixed, but David's reputation was permanently altered.
Right. He wasn't the hard worker anymore.
No, he was no longer David the hard worker. He became David the emotional guy, David the loose cannon. His explosive reaction, even though it was rooted in the actual truth, destroyed years of careful brand building in literally 5 seconds.
And this is exactly why we have to understand the neurology of a reaction. David experienced what psychologists call an amygdala hijack.
Amygdala hijack. What does that mean exactly?
So the amygdala is the ancient primitive part of your brain that detects threats. When the manager lied, David's amygdala bypassed his logical brain, which is the prefrontal cortex, and instantly flooded his body with adrenaline and cortisol.
So his logical brain was just turned off.
Completely off. The manager walked away looking like the calm, rational leader, while David publicly fell apart. David lost because he thought fighting back immediately was a display of power.
Okay, I have to push back here for a second, because this is the real world. If someone blatantly lies about you in front of the executives who control your salary,
Yeah.
doesn't staying completely silent for 5 seconds make you look like a deer in the headlights?
That's a fair question.
I mean, if somebody steals my credit and I just sit there breathing, don't I look like a pushover who's just accepting the blame?
It is entirely natural to fear that. We are so conditioned to equate speed with intelligence. But honestly, pausing for 5 seconds does not make you look frozen. It makes you look analytical.
Analytical, okay.
Yeah, it makes you look like you were evaluating a fascinating specimen in a petri dish. But more importantly, let's look at what is happening physically inside your skull during those 5 seconds.
You mean like letting the adrenaline spike fade?
Exactly. When you inhale deeply and exhale slowly, you are sending a biological signal to your nervous system that you are not actually being chased by a tiger.
Right, there's no physical danger.
Right, you are forcing the prefrontal cortex, that logical, strategic part of your brain, to reboot and come back online. It's like waiting for a software update to finish installing before you try to open a massive file.
Oh, I love that software update analogy.
If you speak during the hijack, your words will be clumsy, defensive, and overly emotional. If you wait 5 seconds, your response will be sharp, calculated, and surgically precise. You shift the dynamic from a frantic defense to an unbothered, controlled response.
You have to let the system reboot before you hit send on your vocal cords.
Yes, beautifully said.
Because if you don't master this 5-second pause, your system crashes, which leads us directly into the pain we need to explore in Lesson 2. Most reactions become regrets.
Regret is the inevitable tax you pay for a fast reaction. Think about the mechanics of it. When we react instantly, we aren't speaking from our intellect, we are speaking from our pain. We raise our voices when we feel small. We throw out vicious insults when we feel deeply threatened.
We want to make the other person hurt as much as we are hurting in that exact microsecond. The problem is, once the adrenaline wears off, you are suddenly left standing in the wreckage of your own life,
The wreckage is real.
and you can't unring a bell. The words are permanent.
So before we break down the psychology of why regret is so haunting, let's integrate some language that perfectly captures this dynamic.
Let's do it. Let's look at a highly descriptive idiom. Touch an old wound.
Touch an old wound.
Yeah. If you think about a physical wound, say, a deep cut on your arm that finally scabbed over if someone bumps into it, the pain is agonizing and immediate. Emotionally, to touch an old wound means to talk about something that brings back painful past memories or deep-seated insecurities.
It's the activation of dormant trauma. For instance, if you grew up struggling with poverty and someone makes a careless, sarcastic joke about your cheap shoes, they haven't just insulted your shoes.
They've touched an old wound.
Exactly. They have activated decades of financial insecurity.
And when an old wound is touched, the most common resulting action is our next phrasal verb, push away. To push someone away doesn't just mean physical distance.
Right, it's emotional.
Emotionally, it means to make someone stop liking you or stop being close to you because of your behavior. For example, her constant anger pushed her friends away.
This psychological chain reaction, an old wound being touched, an explosive reaction, and the subsequent pushing away of a loved one, is perfectly illustrated by a story about two sisters I once observed in a family therapy case study.
Oh, sibling dynamics.
Yeah.
The ultimate minefield for old wounds.
Precisely. They were in their 30s, incredibly close, basically each other's entire support system. But the older sister had always harbored a secret, deep-seated insecurity that she wasn't as academically intelligent as the younger one.
That's a heavy thing to carry around.
It was. So they were at a large Thanksgiving dinner, extended family everywhere. The older sister was telling a story about a mistake she made at work, framing it as a funny anecdote.
Okay, pretty normal.
Right. But the younger sister, trying to play along with the joke, made a highly sarcastic, dry comment. She said something like, "Well, we always knew reading comprehension wasn't your strong suit."
Oh no, I know exactly where this is going. The older sister didn't just get slightly annoyed, did she?
Not at all. That single careless sentence acted as a laser-guided missile directly into the older sister's deepest insecurity. It touched an old wound so violently that her prefrontal cortex completely shut down.
Software crash.
Exactly. She didn't just snap back, she erupted. She stood up at the dinner table and unleashed a decade of completely unrelated resentments. She screamed about how arrogant the younger sister was, brought up past relationships, financial loans, just a scorched earth emotional attack.
Just totally nuking the entire relationship right in front of the aunts and uncles.
Yes, total silence in the room. The younger sister quietly put on her coat and left the house. And the truly devastating part, that was 5 years ago.
Wait, really?
They haven't spoken a single word to each other since.
5 years. Over one sarcastic comment at Thanksgiving.
Yes. And the older sister lives with a crushing daily regret. Not because her sister made a joke, sisters make jokes, but because her own volcanic reaction was so disproportionate, so cruel, that she permanently pushed away the person she loved most.
She let a 5-second surge of adrenaline dictate the next 5 years of her family life.
Exactly.
That is just deeply tragic. It shows how reactions aren't just loud, they are actually destructive. It's like having a malfunctioning spam filter in your email. Your brain flags a mildly annoying comment as a high-level virus, and your system's response is to just delete the entire hard drive to be safe.
The hard drive gets wiped.
Yeah. So, what is the practical mechanism to stop the hard drive from being erased?
You need to install a psychological circuit breaker. When you feel that old wound being touched, when you feel the heat rising in your chest, you need a pre-programmed internal mantra.
Wait, what's the mantra?
The phrase is this: this emotion is real, but this reaction is a choice.
This emotion is real, but this reaction is a choice. That creates a vital wedge between feeling and doing.
Exactly. You are not gaslighting yourself. You are validating the pain. Yes, that comment hurt. Yes, I feel humiliated. But you are explicitly denying that, feeling the steering wheel to your physical body.
You don't let it drive.
Right. You do not let the emotion draft the text message. You wait. You institute a mandatory holding period, 10 minutes, an hour, or ideally a full day, before you respond to anything that triggers you.
Speaking of 10 minutes, if you are enjoying this natural English practice so far, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to keep improving your fluency with us.
That waiting period gives you the ultimate strategic advantage. It guarantees that when you finally do open your mouth, you are operating from intellect, not from a bruised ego.
Which naturally makes me wonder about the alternative. If reacting explosively causes lifelong regret, And we know we need to create that buffer between feeling and acting. How do we deal with someone who is actively, maliciously trying to ruin us? What if the best response doesn't involve our voices at all?
That is a great question.
Which brings us to lesson 3. Silence is a superpower.
The modern world is utterly obsessed with noise. Social media, 24-hour news cycles, reality television. It has all conditioned us to believe that whoever speaks the loudest and the most often holds the power.
Right. Everyone has an opinion on everything.
We feel this desperate compulsion to constantly prove we are right, to justify our existence, to win every petty argument in the comments section.
But if you look closely at the truly influential people in any room, the most powerful people are almost always the quietest ones. Silence is a void, and human beings are terrified of voids.
They absolutely panic.
Yeah. Silence creates mystery. And most importantly, silence projects a C1 level word that is incredibly rare today.
Dignity.
Dignity is a phenomenal concept. It refers to a calm, serious, and controlled behavior that makes people respect you.
It's an internal posture.
Exactly. Dignity is not something you can demand from people. It is something you exude. It is the internal knowledge of your own worth. For instance, he faced the unfair criticism with absolute dignity. Dignity doesn't need to scream to prove it exists.
Yeah.
And maintaining your dignity in a conflict often involves employing our next phrasal verb, make up your mind.
Make up your mind.
This means to make a firm decision. For example, you need to make up your mind about which job to accept.
And its relevance here is rooted in a hard truth about human psychology. You don't need to explain yourself to people who have already made up their minds.
Oh, that's powerful.
If a person has already decided they want to misunderstand you, or they've already committed to a narrative where you are the villain, spending your precious oxygen trying to convince them otherwise is just a fool's errand.
That makes me think of an incredible real-world example of weaponized silence. There was a guy I read about, a well-known community leader who became the target of a vicious online smear campaign.
A smear campaign, those can be brutal.
Oh, incredibly brutal. A former associate of his who was very clearly bitter about a business deal gone wrong started posting fake, heavily edited screenshots of text messages. The associate was twisting the leader's words, trying to completely destroy his reputation and paint him as a fraud.
A digital assassination. The psychological pressure to respond to that must have been suffocating.
Absolutely suffocating. All of his followers, his clients, even his friends were tagging him, waiting for the massive rebuttal. They expected a 40-minute YouTube video breaking down every screenshot or a 10-page legal threat.
Of course, that's the standard script.
Right. But he did something that confused everyone. He stayed completely, utterly silent. He kept posting his normal, positive content as if the attacker didn't even exist.
Which naturally makes people uncomfortable. How did the public interpret his silence initially?
At first, they assumed he was guilty. People were commenting, his silence speaks volumes. If he were innocent, he would defend himself. They thought he's a coward hiding from the truth.
That is the hardest part to endure.
It is. But he held the line. He refused to get into the mud. And then, about 6 to 8 months later, the entire situation resolved itself organically.
How so?
The attacker's own inconsistencies caught up with him. Another person came forward with the unedited original text messages, proving conclusively that the screenshots were doctored. The attacker lost all credibility overnight.
Wow. And how was our silent community leader viewed after the dust settled?
He was practically revered.
Yeah.
What people initially mistook for weakness, they suddenly realized, was pure class. It was absolute, impenetrable dignity. He didn't legitimize the liar by arguing with him. He let the truth do the heavy lifting.
That is a masterclass in emotional regulation.
But I have to play devil's advocate here, because the biological urge to clear your name is overwhelming. If someone is telling a lie about you, every single cell in your body is screaming at you to correct the record.
It feels like a survival imperative.
Exactly. It feels like life or death. How on earth do you physically resist the urge to type out that defense?
You resist it by understanding how defensive behavior is actually perceived by the human brain. When you frantically defend yourself, when you write that 10-page rebuttal, you subconsciously signal anxiety. You look guilty even when you are 100% innocent. Over-explaining looks like you are begging the audience for validation. You are basically communicating, my safety depends on you believing me.
Oh, that is a fascinating shift in perspective. Defensive noise equals vulnerability.
Precisely. But silence is an informational vacuum. When you stay silent, you project unshakable, terrifying confidence. You signal, my reality is so solid that your lies cannot even dent it.
Yeah.
In a conflict, sometimes the most devastating, powerful maneuver you can execute is to simply look the person in the eye, say, I understand, and then physically turn and walk away.
Just, I understand, and leave. That is so potent because it offers zero friction. They came looking for a tug-of-war, they handed you their end of the rope, and you just dropped it.
Exactly.
You leave them entirely alone with their own toxic energy.
You refuse the invitation to their chaos. However, knowing when to deploy silence requires a highly developed filter. You have to know what is actually worth your time, which acts as the perfect transition to lesson 4. Not everything deserves your energy.
This is really a lesson about cognitive economics. Trying to fight every single battle, trying to correct every misunderstanding, will completely destroy your peace and your future.
It will bankrupt you.
Because we only have limited energy in a day. Giving energy to gossip or hate leaves no energy for goals or love. I like to think of it like a battery on your smartphone.
The battery analogy is highly accurate to our neurobiology. And how you choose to spend that daily battery charge brings us to our next C1 word, investment.
Investment.
Yeah.
Usually we hear that in finance.
Right. In finance, an investment means allocating money with the expectation of a positive return. But in psychological terms, it means giving your time or energy to something to get a good result.
Right.
For example, not every problem needs your emotional investment. If you drain 80% of your daily battery being angry at a stranger on the internet, you only have 20% left to invest in your career, your health, or your family.
And the primary reason we make terrible emotional investments is because we get triggered. That's a word we hear a lot lately.
Triggered, yes.
In modern psychology, to be triggered means to experience a strong negative emotional reaction to a stimulus. It happens when something in the present moment brushes up against a past trauma, like he was deeply triggered by the aggressive tone of his boss's email.
Exactly. When we are triggered, the logical brain shuts off and we start hemorrhaging energy. We throw our precious battery life at things that absolutely do not matter.
Like trying to disprove a rumor.
Yes. To illustrate the devastating cost of mismanaged energy, consider the story of a university student I once mentored. She was brilliant, intensely driven, with a clear path to a prestigious law school.
Okay.
But during her junior year, a rumor began circulating in her dormitory that she had cheated on a major test.
Oh man, for an aspiring law student, that is an existential threat to her identity.
It was. And she was profoundly triggered. Her sense of justice was outraged. Instead of recognizing it as meaningless noise, she made it her life's mission to destroy the rumor.
She gave it all her battery.
All of it. She stopped studying. She spent nights writing long posts trying to disprove it, confronting people in the dining halls, demanding retractions.
What was the ultimate cost of all that?
The cost was her actual future. While she was busy fighting ghosts, she failed her midterms. She lost her focus, her dreams, and her energy. She sacrificed her tangible, real-world goals to fight an intangible phantom.
That is a chilling cautionary tale. It perfectly encapsulates what it is believed by many great thinkers. Peace is found in knowing which battles are not worth fighting. You are not obligated to attend every argument you're invited to.
You must become a ruthless auditor of your own attention. I advise people to create a mental list each morning. Before you look at your phone, ask yourself one diagnostic question. What deserves my energy today?
What deserves my energy today? A healthy body? Yes. Finishing that creative project? Yes. The guy who rudely cut me off in morning traffic? Absolutely not.
If a situation is not on your approved list of investments, you simply do not engage. You starve it of oxygen. And protecting your energy so fiercely is what allows you to maintain the state of mind we explore in Lesson 5. The one who stays calm wins.
This might be the most visually striking lesson of them all. Human beings are biologically wired to look for stability. The world inherently respects people who stay calm when everything is falling apart.
Calm people are naturally elevated to leadership positions.
They are trusted leaders because most people live like storms. But a truly calm person is the stillness that scares the storm away.
And the specific flavor of calmness we are talking about introduces a fantastic C1 word, unshaken.
Unshaken.
To be unshaken means to not be affected by a frightening or shocking event. You do not absorb the panic of the room. An example sentence would be, despite the sudden chaos, she remained completely unshaken.
Now let's revisit our idiom from earlier, falling apart, but apply it to an external situation rather than an internal emotional state.
Right, to reinforce the learning.
Exactly. When a complex project is falling apart, when situations are going wrong, deadlines are missed, and everyone else is panicking, The unshaken person is the one whose brain is still functioning.
There is a profoundly moving story that illustrates the physics of being unshaken.
Yeah.
Imagine a very crowded commuter train in a major city. It's the end of a long, stressful workday.
Okay, setting the scene.
Suddenly, at a stop, a large, drunk, aggressively angry man stumbles into the train car.
Oh, we've all felt that sudden drop in the room's temperature. The anxiety just spikes.
Precisely. The man is pushing past people, shouting, swinging his arms. The passengers react in totally predictable, reactive ways. Some shrink into their seats. Some pull out their phones to record. A few younger guys stand up and start shouting back at him.
Which only escalates the threat level. It adds fuel to the fire.
Exactly. But sitting right near the doors is an elderly man. He remains entirely unshaken. He doesn't flinch. As the drunk man focuses his rage on this old man, storming over and looming over him, the old man does something miraculous.
What did he do? Did he try to fight him?
No. He looked the furious man directly in the eyes and calmly said, "Whatever happened to you today, I'm sorry it brought you this far."
Wow. I'm sorry it brought you this far.
The physiological effect on the drunk man was instantaneous. His fists unclenched, the red flushed out of his face. He literally collapsed into the empty seat next to the old man and began to cry.
He just started crying.
Yes. The entire room's energy shifted, all because one person chose absolute calmness over contagious chaos.
That is master-level emotional intelligence. But here's the reality check. That level of calmness is not natural.
It absolutely is not. It is a discipline. You must emotionally detach and practice calmness in small storms.
Right, like a spilled coffee or a delayed train. If you can't regulate your breathing over a spilled latte, you'll never stay calm when a real crisis hits.
Exactly.
So why do some panic while others stay calm? It all comes down to the mechanics of the brain, bringing us to lesson 6. Reaction is habit, response is power.
Most people live under the illusion that they are making conscious choices. They aren't. They are reacting because reacting is an automatic habit, born from unhealed wounds.
So, if you were ignored as a child, you overreact to being ignored now.
Perfectly stated. A reaction is loud and destructive like a volcano, but a response is deep and steady like the ocean.
To really grasp the difficulty of choosing response over reaction, let's look at a C1 word.
Entitled.
To be entitled means believing you have the right to do or have whatever you want, like the rude entitled customer snapped his fingers.
Dealing with an entitled person is incredibly grating, which pairs perfectly with our next word, unaware.
Meaning not knowing or realizing something. Most people who react explosively to entitled behavior are entirely unaware of their own internal mechanics.
To illustrate waking up from that unaware state, let's look at a focused restaurant waiter. One night, a rich, extremely entitled customer was seated in his section.
The ultimate stress test.
From the moment he sat down, this customer was a nightmare, snapping his fingers, demanding things. When his main course was delayed by a few minutes, the customer completely lost his mind.
The amygdala hijacked.
Yes. He stood up and screamed at this young waiter in the middle of a packed room, calling him lazy and incompetent.
Now the crowd expects the waiter to either scream back or run to the kitchen, because reaction is instinct.
But this waiter understood that response is intentional wisdom. He stood perfectly still, let the man finish screaming, and calmly replied that he was doing his best. Then he said, "I will continue to serve you with respect because that's who I am."
That's who I am. Wow. He completely refused to let the customer's chaotic script rewrite his own character.
Exactly. He anchored his response in his own values. He was actually promoted that very night.
Because response is applied power. So how do we reprogram the mind to do this?
You have to ask yourself a diagnostic question. Is this intense emotion about now, or is it about something old?
Am I furious at this slow barista? Or am I furious because I feel a lack of control in my life? That changes everything.
It forces the logical brain to engage. However, to truly transition from reacting to responding, we must confront the biggest internal obstacle of all.
Which brings us to our final pointer, lesson 7. If you want peace, let go of ego.
The ego is arguably the most misunderstood concept. The ego is the silent, invisible voice inside your head that demands respect and validation.
Let's clearly define validation, our C1 word here. Validation is the psychological feeling that other people approve of and accept you. It's relying on external mirrors to tell you that you are good enough.
The ego is a parasite that survives on validation. When it panics, you shout and fight to prove you are right. Ego is a prison.
To unlock that prison, we need our final phrasal verb, let go. To let go means to stop holding on to something, physically or emotionally. For example, you must let go of your need to be right.
Because dropping the ego is how you rise.
I want to share a story about a loyal employee. He'd given 10 years of his life to a company, and then one Tuesday morning, he was replaced by his company without warning.
A completely sterile corporate execution.
Yes, his ego screamed for revenge. He wanted to hire vicious lawyers and destroy his former boss. But an important person in his life, his grandmother, who had survived wars and poverty, told him something profound.
What did she say?
She said, "You don't heal by proving others wrong. You heal by proving their actions will not control your future."
The ego wants revenge, but the soul wants freedom.
Exactly. So he walked away silently, let go of the ego, and later built a much more successful company.
He achieved victory because he caught the internal voice. Ask yourself, is this my soul speaking or my ego screaming?
Realizing the ego is not you is the ultimate hack for a peaceful life.
It is the master key.
And mastering that key leads perfectly into the special bonus we promised at the very beginning. As promised, here is the bonus pointer to tie everything together. Write your own narrative.
This summarizes the overarching theme of this deep dive. The true bonus of not reacting is that you become the author of your own life.
You stop reading from the terrible scripts other people hand you?
Precisely. You no longer read from their insults or their drama. You write your own dialogue.
And this philosophical concept ties perfectly back into our mission for you regarding your English learning focus. Fluency in English and fluency in emotions both require the exact same thing: daily, consistent practice.
You don't become fluent by studying 1 weekend a month. You practice every single day.
So view every minor annoyance as a practice rep.
We want to leave you with one final provocative thought. You don't belong in the noise. You are born for quiet power. Sometimes the loudest thing you can ever say is nothing at all.
Please, right now, write "I am consistent" in the comment box. Rate feedback and which kind of topic you want next video. If you enjoyed this podcast, there are many more podcasts on my channel. Go check them out. Focus on language learning, speaking, and listening. Thank you so much for joining us. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. Until next time, stay strong, stay silent, and stay free.